Okay.
Regan is a taller version of Derek. And Nick or Clarita beat him. Well, who's to say that Clarita can't go in there and beat every person in this lineup?
Hell yeah.
Bingo.
All right, so we're back, Cutler Cast, and it's episode 60. I just said to Matt, we need Milos here to do the countdown. He said like 84 or some shit.
He's always got it wrong.
What did he say, episode 80 or?
I don't know. You just made some number up.
Crazy.
Today we're sponsored by Chipotle.
No, we're sponsored by Celsius, dude, and we're sponsored by the Sparkling Grape Rush, Chris Cormier's favorite drink. He drank like 2 or 3 of them.
How many of those do you drink a day? For real?
Only one.
You're full of shit.
No, only one. Because I don't have any at my house. I don't keep any Celsius at home. It's addicting, though, because it's like you're sick. Because you sip on, like...
Because if you have a case, you'll just keep drinking them all day.
I know, but no, the caffeine's too much. I drank one, actually, on the drive home last night. So I came back from California last night at, like... Let's see, I left about 10 o'clock. Man, it was awesome.
What? You know what? I remember you were planning on staying till Wednesday, and then you just text me, we're out of this.
No. We had to come back because Angie had to go to the dentist this morning, and I said to her, I'm like so mad because we had the Amex checkout. It was like 4 p.m. today, so we could have stayed or whatever, but she had made that appointment. She really kind of needed to get that done. Plus, I had a lot of stuff to do, so next time I'll plan a little lengthier trip, but it was just so much easier driving at night. But I drank one of these on the drive home, and I got home at like 2:30.
Did you go to sleep right away? Or
no, because I unloaded the truck and did all that stuff. But we just got back from L.A., so Fit Expo. Yeah, it was awesome. We had Milos on here the last time, and we were kind of going back and forth. And the funny thing is we kind of knew what was going on, but we couldn't air it. So as soon as we launched the last episode, which was 59. The announcement was made that Nick Walker joined. Mm-hmm. They bumped up
the prize money,
$100,000 increase only for the men's open.
Okay.
Now this is pissing some people off.
I understand because one division went up, and the one division that went up is the division where the guys weren't doing it. It's still the most important division. Yeah. And I had a conversation with someone like that was upset about it, and I understand both sides of the equation. One side of it is, why are you awarding these guys $100,000 if nobody wanted to do it? Why should they get more money? The other side of it is, like someone like a bikini division, their money stayed the same.
It's $10,000 for the bikini. It's $10,000 for the men's physique.
Okay.
Now, as a promoter, I understand like there's only so much in the pot, right?
Yes.
That you can put for prize money. Unfortunately, here we are, classic physique, and I don't know if it's discretion of the promoter or what it is, but classic physique pays more than the Mr. Olympia, right? So yes. It's $10,000. Was it $60,000 or
$60,000 for the Arnold? I think it's $50,000 at the Olympia. Okay.
And is that my phone or your phone?
That's your phone.
I had it off. That's weird.
It's not mine.
Oh, it must be might be someone else's computer over there.
Yeah.
To have, the women's bikini, I think was $50,000 at the Olympia, and to have it be $10,000 at the Arnold, it stings a little bit for those competitors a little, but I know, there were some divisions. I remember when the 212 was canceled for the Arnold, like there was some, uproar about that, but it came down to, especially coming through the pandemic and everything else, like we're still kind of rebounding from that. But what's your thoughts on the prize money on those lower tier divisions, like, for team being $10,000? It's equal to everything else. It is the Arnold Classic. It is the second biggest competition, probably prestige title.
I would say one, it's up to the promoter. Mm-hmm. They can do what they want. It's their choice. And if athletes want to do it, they do it. If they don't, they don't. I think I was more bothered that there's a $200,000 purse and guys didn't want to do it. And I know how much a lot of the guys make, and that's a lot more than a lot of these guys are making all year. A lot of the guys. for them to bump it 300 to attract them, and this might sound weird, but it's kind of like a spoiled attitude. Like, well, that's not enough, so give us this much more, and then we'll come do it. And it's like, there's no other show that's paying even over 50 grand, and 200,000 is a huge number, but now it's 300.
But let me ask you this: was that the reason that they bumped it, just to attract more competitors?
I don't know.
There was only 6.
I don't know if that's the exact reason. I know they had been talking about bumping it for years.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
If the lack of interest in the contest. Remember now, okay, which a lot of these people don't know. This isn't an invitational. It's the only invitational contest. Correct.
Yes.
That invitation application came out when? Before the Olympia, correct?
Yes, I think this year is a little different because the Olympia was so far down. If I remember right, usually like mid-December they announced the Arnold list, and everybody, it was a month or two beyond the Olympia.
Okay.
But this time the Olympia was after that deadline. So I think if there would have been a month after, some guys might be like, I'm not doing it. Well, 3-4 weeks later, they might be like, well, yeah, I want to do it. Let me change my mind. That happens a lot where people change their mind.
Yeah.
So I think that had something to do with it being so close that somebody did or didn't commit, or maybe they wanted to commit later. I don't know if that's the exact reason why, but I do know that they want to raise the prize money on all the divisions, and I don't know if that's going to happen next year or the year after or whatever else. But I think that's a pretty big difference between a bikini and men's open. I do understand the opposite side just because I've been around you, and I know how much it costs for some guy to get ready for an open show. There's only a couple shows in the world that if you win, you actually make money.
I get a little frustrated with how much it costs to get ready for a show, because let's be real. We got into this bodybuilding thing. It's not a cheap sport, right? No matter what way you look at it. And people can look at, well, it's not cheap to compete. It's not cheap to have a coach. It's not. I came from an era where I wasn't paying for a coach. Okay, I couldn't afford a coach. Chris Aceto worked with me for free, fortunately, which I didn't even use the term coach. He was kind of an eye for me. He was a friend. He became family to me pretty much. But, I feel like I've worked with the two best in the business between Hani and Chris Aceto. But, looking back, I know people's whole focus is on, well, it costs more for drugs for the men's open, right? That's what their perception is. But it's so far from what it is. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's always that in your corner. But at the same time, the food amount, the protein, to maintain the size, I was looking at, tissue work. I was looking at, the things that you did. Like, it's just, it's very expensive to.
I remember, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I remember a number that you said in the past. You told me, how much did it cost for you to maintain your body at that size year in and year out? Do you remember?
I mean, it was my Olympia money went to that. Well,
six
over 100
figures.
grand, yeah.
So some of the people out there that are upset, maybe saying, well, they're getting more, they don't realize that an elite top guy, especially at the size you were, it's damn near 6 figures to maintain that physique.
Yeah, and my little outrageous, things with the massage and tissue work, stretching and all that. I mean, I was spending over $1,000 a week just on that work, so that was $4,000 a month just alone.
But that's also why you're healthy today.
I mean,
not everyone
I attribute a lot of reasons, but I think, I was saying to someone this morning, like, I just feel great getting out of bed. Like, I don't ache in pain, and, I look forward to training, and I didn't sleep much last night, unfortunately. But, I understand, though. I want to get back to, we had a lot of people jump in, and we'll get to that in a second. But one person that didn't jump in was Derek Lunsford, okay? And people question this, okay? And listen, if I could reverse back, if Jay Cutler was here and in this position, I would have ran so quick to get ready for that show, because I wasn't taxed to train for Olympias, if that makes sense. I wasn't finishing the show like, oh my gosh, I need a break. I was back in the gym the next day. I was training just like I saw Nick Walker. So when I saw Nick, and I'm like, dude, you need to do this. Like, and he hadn't made the decision yet. And I know he was kind of like, he told me, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. But like it wouldn't really change his routine because he's so strict with the diet. Yeah. And he felt good. I mean, he felt confident. He had a great showing. I mean, we both agree he's probably going to be improved in a few weeks.
He's the front runner for sure.
Yeah. But I understand Derek too, because he's knocking at the door, man. And if he wants to put all his eggs into Olympia, hey man, it's his choice. You know, he just collected $150,000. I mean, he's not a money guy necessarily. He's new. It's like new to him. So I don't think that I mean, even last year winning the 212, what's he win? 50 grand or 60 grand?
50, yeah.
So like this is all kind of new for him. And if he wants to roll it out, and I mean, I'm sure Hani has the right sense. I mean, listen, he kept Phil Heath out of it for years. So when Phil came in, he got third, and you know, the next year he almost like he was questionable. He probably could have won it, but he got sick. And then of course, you know, he places second to me and then wins the next year. So he knows what he's doing.
I thought about this from another angle, and you just give your opinion on it. So, and this is just people talk. I didn't speak to Hani about, I didn't speak to Derek. I didn't speak to any of these guys about this. It's just me just asking. If the reason to sit out is because you think you're going to come back and win next year, you're going to improve. The first thing that goes through my mind is, you don't think Hadi's going to improve? Do you think, and the way I look at it is like, somebody might look at the guy ahead of them, like a Rami, and say, Rami's got this weakness, or whoever else is in front of them. I can beat him in this area. When I look at Hadi, where are you going to beat him?
I know, bro, but I don't know if he can. I think he can improve on conditioning with that size, right? It's refinement now, because he can't really go any bigger necessarily. I mean, maybe a little bit, but then he falls into what happened to all of us, right? We got bigger, too big. So ideally, I think for him, like, he just needs to come back, tighten up the backside so he's more competitive with Derek there, and Derek doesn't distance himself from the back shots. And, you know, that whole Mr. Olympia, you know, it's judged from the back. I mean, we proved this year that that's not the case. No. You still have to have the front.
Let me ask you this, though. But so, and I'm going to use Derek, Nick.
Well, Derek's limited too, bro. Like, Derek can only get so big with his height to, you know, structure. And
so let's talk about the top three. You got Hadi, Derek, and Nick. And all three of them think that they can win next year. And all three of them can.
Yes.
Now, what happens? All three of these now Nick's Nick's actually doing the Arnold. What happens if Andrew Jack gets his shit together?
I just was going to say,
Samson gets his shit together. Then it doesn't matter what you do, because if they're on point,
you can't beat structure, bro.
Yeah. So if these guys improve, all three of those guys could lose, and then you're going to look back and go, shit, I could have got that 300K, and now, and this is a hypothetical. Now let's say Andrew and Samson fucking nail it next year, and they're 1-2. Now you could fall out of a decent paycheck.
No, you could, but dude, there's a lot of variables.
Of course,
that's why we hold competitions. Yeah. That's why it's exciting.
This is just a hypothetical.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know how many times I've heard in my career, oh, if so-and-so gets in shape, and it just never comes to a realization. I mean, look at all the greats, the Nassers and the Sean Rays and Wheelers and Levrones and all these guys that were knocking at the door but couldn't get over the big hump, right?
Yeah.
So when I won, it was like, here, this is a dedication to all you guys that weren't able to achieve it. I was luckily, you know, one of the ones to be able to come through and win it, you know, and a lot of perseverance, obviously getting, you know, second to Coleman 4 times. But I think, you know, there's no guarantees. And if, you know, it's easy for us as people on a microphone to be able to say, Derek's crazy, you know, not to collect 300,000. But that's the thing. Is it even guaranteed for Derek?
Of course. It's not guaranteed for anybody.
You know, if we had the battle, okay, I'm going to put a scenario together. And I'm going to tell you my take on this, okay? And people are going to agree or disagree, and I want people to comment on this. That's why we get on this and we talk. If the battle, this is how I see the Olympia. Derek wowed the judges because it was such a surprise, right, to see him with that fullness from what he's tore himself down. I said this all along. We haven't seen it. Do you remember when Milos was here arguing and he said, oh, he's flat and this and that. Well, dude, we haven't seen him like full yet, right? Yeah. So we saw him full, and the wow factor put him in the second place. He deserved it, okay? Yes. But Walker doesn't think so. Walker thinks he had that spot.
And there's an argument.
And the question is, okay, we're over the wow factor of Derek. So full circle now, Nick and Derek square off at this Arnold Classic. Who's victorious?
My personal opinion, Hadi and Derek match up better together. If Hadi's not there, my personal opinion, I think Nick overwhelms Derek. That's just
I would probably agree. Yeah. Because you had front to back scenarios between Hadi and Derek, where Nick, dude, he's pretty all around, right? Yep. So if we had the Olympia showdown now, after the judges have seen Derek, and that's what's going to be the telltale of next year's Olympia.
Is he going to have the wow again?
Is he going, like you're expecting? And the problem is expectations, you know how it is. They're like, oh, man, he sat out for a year. What improvements is he going to have, right? Mm-hmm. So sure as hell, he needs to come back and get to work.
What if the improvements aren't
up
what
to
the
people's
judges assume?
No, it's people's expectation also, right? Because remember, who's the people's champ?
Of course, Nick.
So,
and if he doesn't make those, does the judges look at him and go, and this is just like, man, he didn't do his homework, and then it's a negative connotation.
But you know what I love? Bodybuilding is exciting again. This is we can sit here, you and I, who've kind of sat. Yeah. I mean, listen, you've been at my peak, and Ronnie Coleman and Phil Heath, and this is exciting. Okay, but
because there's a lot of a scenario.
Yes, but tell me. So Derek didn't join the list. Andrew Jack did.
Andrew Jackson.
Who also? Patrick Moore.
Those are the two that were added, and Nick. Those three were added to the original list.
Okay.
And look, I say Nick is the favorite,
but we've lost some people too, right?
Charles Griffin backed out, and
Blessing
Boogeyman dropped out.
Yes.
We saw him in LA this weekend.
Yes.
So, but there was 6. There's 9 guys doing it. And to me, it's going to be.
It's a hell of a lineup for 9 guys.
You got Clarita and Andrew Jack.
See, that's someone we're not talking about where I have to. Someone brought him up today. Dude, he's going to do some damage. He's going to upset some people.
Milos was talking about this last night, and I didn't think of it like this. And hypothetically, Clarita went into the Reno show and beat
I know what you're saying.
Regan.
Yeah.
Regan is a bigger version of Derek.
He beat Sergio. Did he beat Kuklo too, or
no? Kuklo. It was Sergio and Regan. So, but Regan
is Kuklo in the show, or
no?
Okay,
Regan is a taller version of Derek, and Nick or Clarita beat him. Well, who's to say that Clarita can't go in there and beat every person in this lineup?
Hell yeah.
I just think it's going to be crazy. Imagine if they have Clarita with Andrew on one side and Samson on the other.
Yeah.
But like you're saying though, it's one of those shows where you see what you think on paper, but I have a feeling whatever we think, it might not play out that way. And I know Clarita is super, super consistent. I know Nick has been consistent, but Nick's done what? 4 pro shows?
Yeah, he can't.
So
in like a force.
He's came in shape these time, but Clarita's been consistent for 5 years, and he's done a lot of shows. So, and they both got the same coach. So, it'll be fun. It'll be kind of cool to see Nick and Clarita next to each other because it's going to happen. Clarita is going to be in the front.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though. They made this big announcement, and obviously Nick's a big name right now, and I think people are just assuming, Nick's came for his $300,000 check. I mean, listen, our confidence, I mean, I would be leaning towards him to win it, but I thought Rami was going to win the Mr. Olympia too. Like who said he wasn't going to win?
Hey, look, and
is he doing the show? No, he's not in the Arnold.
I've always said this when you look at a show, You can have on paper what you think, but you know this. There's a million variables that can happen.
Lots.
You could be in a hotel room where the neighbor's loud and it keeps you up and you don't sleep. You could eat something wrong. You could catch a flu. You could, like Phil Heath when he got sick and he got fifth and he was throwing up the night. People didn't know that. There's so many variables that can happen, and you could get stuck at an airport for 12 hours because of travel problems, and that could fuck you up. Like, there's a lot of variables, but on paper we kind of have an idea of where we think guys will place. But will they place there? We're going to find out in March.
Well, they're having pay-per-view. Make sure you guys go on and sign up early for the pay-per-view. And, Arnold Sports. It's going to be a crazy, crazy weekend. We'll be in the house.
You know what's funny? Sometimes I prefer watching stuff on pay-per-view, like UFC fights.
I know, but their stream is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
I mean,
they spend a fortune.
It's a big money.
It's just sometimes it's kind of like watching UFC. Like we get offered tickets all the time, and you don't see it that good in person. But sometimes you're at home, you can see the instant replay and the slow motion, and you hear Joe Rogan talking, and so the I don't know who's.
I think this is the year, though. I think this is the year they bring the former champs back up.
I think so too.
Yeah, so I think I'll get some
is
stage
this
time.
How many years?
It's something anniversary, but I'm not sure which.
Is it approaching 40 years? When was his first one?
You might have to look it up.
Early 80s? I don't remember.
I think it was 90 or something, or 89. So, 89 was the first one.
Okay. So.
Yeah, so
LA Fit Expo.
Yeah, we just got back. So, it's kind of like I always go to these expos, and like this is a kickoff. We were talking about that. It was my 20th.
Does that make you feel old?
No, but it makes me feel part of history because it was kind of funny when people said, "Oh, do you come to this?" And I said, "Yeah, I was actually the first athlete here. Was in Pasadena." And we were talking. John Balick came to see me. John Balick used to head up the Ironman, and he kind of was the.
Can you give us lighting help?
Yeah, I know, right? People they're starting to talk about the black curtains again.
Of course.
And listen, I'm all for that.
Talk about that.
Okay.
Does it make a difference?
It does make a difference. And I don't care. And I the judging, I think they can pretty much see a physique no matter what. But I know for the pitchers and the fans that aren't there present, definitely viewing from an audience that's not in the house, even people that are in the house, I'm not going to lie, that don't have this specific eye that the judges have, that black background makes a huge difference. It helps with the lighting. Think about it. If that lighting's coming off bright, it doesn't give the same contrast on the physique, right? And I think it's super important. Like, I would love to see more of that prejudging type. I mean, we talked about the Olympia and all the light shows and everything else, but we have to come back to bodybuilding somewhat. I mean, I know we want it to be
at least for prejudging.
Yeah,
where it counts, where the first.
I would like to see it. I would like to see, a lot of shows. I mean, Ironman was the best lighting ever. It definitely made my physique come alive, and we can talk about.
You know what I thought about in this, and I don't know the answer to this. Somebody else could tell me. I've noticed like there's a line, and is the lighting set up to where when you're on that line, it's perfect?
It's a perfect,
Because then what happens is notice guys are 2-3 feet in front of it.
They think they need to go forward,
And for whatever reason, the lighting isn't exactly there, and it's making the guys, maybe you get different shades or different this, that, because they're
that's why Steve's a great judge. He pulls them back to the line constantly. But, everyone wants to get that edge. You know what I mean? You always want to get that one step forward. Yeah, so, so we were at the Expo this weekend, and it just brings back a lot of memories, and the fans are just, absolutely awesome to come out and support. And, LA, it's all, we always talk about, the weather was kind of terrible this time and the traffic and everything else. And, we get to spend some good time, caught up with Phil again, and, a lot of everyone, Urishna, obviously. And, we had a great, experience with the fans and walking the show. You thought it was pretty busy, though.
It was definitely, it was busy up and down the aisles. Was this the busiest
one since the shutdown?
Yeah, this was the busiest Fit Expo for sure. Yeah. It was maybe not as busy as it was right before the shutdown, but it's getting close. Like where your booth is, it's towards the back where the bodybuilding show is and everything. So there's a lot more space. But as you get closer and the aisles are normal, the aisles where, you had to zigzag through people like any other.
Yeah, I just looked a couple of times. My line was just absolutely crazy. And the stories that I hear Like, that's the one thing. Well, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get away from the expos, because I can't believe how many people come to me with weight challenges now, rather than, oh, I'm heading into a show. And everyone's classic now. No one's doing, I don't think I've spoke to one person getting ready for a bodybuilding competition at this point. Everyone wants to do classic. And I think that, you know, the inspiration they get, maybe looking at people like myself and some, you know, Maureen and Regan and all these people that were out there, you know, Brandon Hendrickson and Ebanks and everybody, like, we all have our place in fitness, but, you know, the people line up for hours on end. And I tell people all the time, like, I wouldn't wait in a long line like that. People wait 2-3 hours to come up, and sometimes it's brief. And I try to create conversation and ask them, hey, why do you come here? And you don't know how many people told me, like, I saw something, or I overcame, I lost, I mean, so many people, 100 pounds, 50 pounds, this, I'm getting started again on a program. I had children, and now I've fallen off. And that makes me feel so good, because remember, all these titles and awards and everything, you know, you can only look at those so much and say, okay, well, what do I do today? And that's why the content, like, they talked about the podcast, you know, JTV, the J-Mail, you know, Cutler Club, and, you know, all the product lines, everything like that. It's just amazing. You don't realize you touch that many people's lives. And, you know, that's what I love about these expos and the fans coming out from all over. They came from all over. There was people, Australia, in, you know, Canada, everywhere.
I think a lot of today's pros miss out on this, because years ago when you were coming up, the Expos was kind of like where you made your money. This is where you sold autographs in person. Everything was done in person. And a lot of the athletes now were not around when that was a mandatory thing. So they turn these Expos down because they don't see that long-term return. But they don't understand that interaction with somebody, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I follow you on TikTok, I follow you on Instagram, I follow your videos, blah, 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 and you spend a little time with them, and next thing you know, they're buying an autograph from you, and they get this connection in person. It's real. It's not just a fake seeing them on your phone. And now that person becomes a fan for life, and now they're on their social media telling people about how amazing you are. And who knows where it can go from there. You might get, you know, they'd start buying your supplements. They start telling their neighbor about it.
You know what it is? It's more the engagement, bro. Like, I know people go flip through media, right? Yeah. And I do it myself. I follow a lot of people, right? Over 2,000 people, I think I follow on Instagram. I'll give that for example.
That's way too many.
But
I know.
So I watch a lot of, and I try to go through every night, and I try to go through at least 10 people, and I comment, you know, and sometimes it's short comments. Sometimes it's like, I just look at what they post, and that means a lot to people.
Of course.
You know, and that's what we talk about. Like, we finish our videos and stuff like that. Hey man, like, subscribe, follow, you know, in YouTube and whatever else. I mean, we've grown now. We've over the weekend crossed over 40,000 on this channel. And we kind of, like we said, we started this thing with kind of a vision. And, you know, I think we got really excited about this the last few weeks. I mean,
it's because we talked about it, and we had certain milestones, and we haven't really, like, and I know people might say this isn't smart of us, but we don't really promote it that hard. We're allowing this to organically grow. You're not posting it on your social media every day.
And to be honest, like, we don't have, like, when we come in, there's no real, like, topics. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not reading from a script or anything like that. So it's
you don't have a teleprompter? No. No, you could be on Fox News. Yeah. But we literally, if people knew I came in here because I'm working on a podcast we did, and we're doing the thumbnail.
And I was shipping orders.
You were shipping orders, and you're like, well, when do we want to do a podcast? And you're like, well, what about tomorrow? And you're like, well, when are you going to go train? I'm like, I just got to go train. So I went to the gym and trained. Yeah. We went and got food. We came here, turned everything on.
It's what time is it right now? It's like 8:20 at night.
And I'm going to launch it in the morning.
Yeah. So you know, it's just kind of a visionary thing, and we've listened to the feedback, but it's really, you know, for you to walk around these expos and, you know, people to recognize, like, hey, we appreciate what you do. And you don't realize, like, people do listen, that's why they do their cardio or whatever else. And they want to like get inside our head a little bit. But you know, we all have our like normalcy to what we do too. I stayed a little bit after the expo, and you know, even though the weather was crappy, and you know me, I'm usually like, I'm just gonna get back to Vegas and get back to work. And you always tell me like, hey, you should take. So Angie and I we stayed at this place called Pelican Hill in Orange County, and it was beautiful, man. We had like a little bungalow and everything, and we just chilled with the dogs and ordered food. And it was kind of nice because we were like out of clothes from the weekend. Like we needed to do our laundry and everything. And we just were like, man, let's just order food. Let's not go out to eat. And because we had been eating all weekend, right? Yeah. And we sat in the bungalow yesterday, and Angie started texting you because we were watching a clip on Instagram, and I said, oh man, I'm going to pull this up. And I watched my J to Z video, and you want to laugh, I've never watched the video.
Really?
I've never watched it. So we were watching this, and I was watching, you know, me push this crazy weight, and I was bragging to Angie, and of course she films me while we were watching. I didn't know. And look at the weight, because I was doing like the 170s, because no, you were watching Ronnie Coleman press the 200s, and he did it 6 times. And I'm like, fuck, I was pretty strong too. And so I put on me doing the 170s for 12, okay? And she's like, man, I can't believe how big you were. She's like, you can't put your arms down because the lats were like hanging.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a episode where we went to Muscle Beach. Remember Dave Borlée set this thing up for J to Z. So a lot of you guys out there will listen to this and understand what scene we're talking about. So we went to Muscle Beach, and we had to like call ahead and arrange it with Joe Wheatley, and you showed up. I don't know what you were doing out there though.
I was in LA. I was doing music industry stuff.
Okay. And and how did it just happen?
I was out there actually with
Did you text
a meeting
me,
with
or?
Sony, and Bunby and Pimp C were out there.
Okay.
And we were doing an event with one of the guys that I managed. And then somehow, I don't know if I texted you or like...
I think you saw it advertised or something, or... Because we didn't have social media, right?
No, I don't know how, but you're like, I'm going to be over here, meet me here. So I drove over to the Max Muscle, and I parked, and I sat there, and then we bullshitted. We're like, we're going to go film. And I went, all right, fuck it, let's go. So I went over there with you.
Yeah, so we were at Muscle Beach, and there you are in the background. I'm going to have you put the clip up of you standing there with, you know...
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember training, and like, you know, I was looking, you know, it's so funny.
What I remember about that day? You were doing back.
Yeah.
And you were afraid the shit was rusty and it was going to break.
Yeah, because I was like, pulling it was the cable stack. Yeah.
And you're like, if this thing breaks, my career's over. This thing's going to kill me.
And you know, I kind of reminisce when I watch these things, and I get this nostalgic feel of like, man, like, what it was like to win that title and be the fucking man. And like, I know what Hottie is feeling like, and I know what Phil felt like, and Roden and Big Ramy, because like when you achieve the biggest, dude, and you walk around, and like they were on the microphone, like Jay Cutler's the best bodybuilder in the world. And you know, for the people that don't know, right?
People started gathering around.
So they were watching around the cage. And, you know, we talk about high points of our life, and you know, sometimes it's like people get married or have children, or you know, special occasions like jobs or whatever else. But like, man, like winning the Olympia is just like, I can't explain the feeling, and I forget, because that was like a time ago. But at the same time, like that's what's nice about watching those videos and having those 7-hour DVDs that I actually sold a bunch of today, by the way, which is crazy because I don't have a DVD player in my house. I mean, everyone streams everything. But, you know, those moments, and to think that was 2007, dude. Yeah. That was so long ago.
16 years ago. And it doesn't seem like it was 16 years ago. It doesn't at all.
And I remember, like, when I watched that, I'm like, damn, like, things started to come back to me a little bit, like the moments, and I was like, God, that was just yesterday. And, you know, I was watching, and I had, you know, the old dogs, you know, I had Scrappy, and I had, you know, Trace and Bodie, and moving into the new house, which you came and stayed with me, and it wasn't even finished yet. My pool wasn't even in the backyard yet. So
that didn't come for years later, right?
Yeah, well, the next year. I built it in 2008. I built the house, but, you know, I had all the media put in and all that stuff, and it's just like I looking at my office.
And Saru filmed you and you had the porn playing.
Yeah, the porn. Yeah, it was actually in that video. It was in that one. We were kind of laughing about it because Angie hadn't seen that yet. And the hell? Yeah, man, it's just like to look back now, and I know what these guys feel like. So when we talk about bodybuilding and we talk about, like, we've been harping a little bit on, you know, prizes, money, and why people enter. But the real reason people enter these things, man, is for the title.
They want to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that winning feeling it's the most euphoric feeling that you could ever have. You know what I mean? When you win and know that you worked your out. And someone like, if Derek ever gets to achieve this now, and knowing the sacrifice and him passing up opportunity of, you know, maybe holding another title, and Schwarzenegger holding up dude, that's something someone wants too, is like, how much longer is Arnold going to be attending these, or, you know, being able to be on stage, you know, in great shape to be able to award these guys.
The day is going to come at some moment in history where people are going to say, and I don't know, it could be 10 years, not 20, where they're going to say, at one point, this Arnold Classic, Arnold was the biggest star in the world, and he walked and handed you a trophy.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's 75. You know, when he's 80, is he going to be able to carry that? We don't know. Is he going to be
I remember when Joe, you know, they brought Joe out, you know, on stage, and, you know, he wasn't in the condition that he was the years prior, where he would open the show and hold all the guys' arms. And like, Arnold's the man, you know. I mean, Arnold's still Arnold. That's just like, there's no one. What, you know, like I said, you always made it when someone calls you by your first name and you know exactly who they're talking about. Of course. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. I'm looking forward to the Arnold, though.
So, you know, you were out there for, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about your background and the music stuff, and, you know, traveling to these expos. I mean, what's your experience now? I mean, you go to a lot of expos, and obviously you're kind of liaison for some people there, and you work close with the Fit Expo. Like, you know, what's your take on it when you go from one industry to, because I did never experience another industry. And we talk about, like, you know, when we were watching that video earlier, and like we talk about name people in an industry, and, you know the top. I mean, you talk about Little John, and, you know, you toured around with him, and, you know, we talked about Rick Ross before, and like you had relationship like with a lot of those bigger names, right?
At one point, yeah.
What is it like compared to like fitness events? Like, do the fans react different, or what are the what would you say is different?
If I were to say, well, the first thing, the vast majority of the interaction you're having with fans in the music industry is at some type of venue. And a lot of times it's a nightclub, or it's somewhere else where there's alcohol involved. So and it's a lot harder to access the talent, you know, to where.
But they have security. Yes. Like, that's the one thing. Like, I don't roll with security. And do they fly on private planes?
Some do. Some do, some don't. It just depends.
Is it part of a contract, or?
It can be. It depends on how big you are, where it is. I would say a lot less fly private than you would think, because it's extremely expensive to fly private.
Especially now, yeah.
I mean, when I brought Rick Ross's first appearance ever here in 2007, and Flow Rider the same night, 2007, New Year's Eve at Spin Nightclub here in Vegas, and they all flew commercial, you know, just first class. And the big difference is, like, if I take you somewhere, it's just you and I. If I brought a large artist somewhere, like say I took Ludacris somewhere, he's got 15 people with him. So it's not the same.
Why so many people, though?
Because of the production. Like, for example, let's I'll use him for example. He's going to have him. He's going to have 1 or 2 hype men. A lot of times these guys will perform with live bands at times, and if they do, because it's more of a spectacle, you got a bass guitarist, 2 keyboardists. Then you got a sound engineer, you got someone doing the lighting, you got an assistant, you got someone, you could have 1, 2, sometimes 3 security, a tour manager. You could easily have 10 to 12 people on the road. And depending on how big the production is, you might have a production assistant that does all this as well. So you got to take care of all of these people. So you're going to have a presidential suite for the huge star. And then you're going to have to book 1 or 2 rooms next to that suite because the security needs to be close to them. And then the rest of the people are usually try to get them on the same floor or 1 floor below them. So that's a whole thing you have to work
And what's a budget? Like, what's a budget look like? I know it's all over the place, but like, What would it cost a lot of times
for
to bring people?
It depends on where. Like if you were, and look, and I haven't done numbers like this, and my last tour was with Neo in 2014. And if you're going overseas, whatever you're getting here, it's usually 3x, depending on where you're going overseas.
Okay, but like what would be a fee to go perform
for like
here?
A real big.
What do you do? Perform 3 songs or 4 songs?
If someone probably, I don't know what these guys' numbers are. Back when I was doing it, 40 to 50,000, depending on how big the name was.
Plus expenses.
But if you're going overseas, that same 40 or 50 could be a quarter.
So
million.
that's why the ticket sales are a big thing for them. And
yes.
It could be,
and a lot of times the casinos offset this because they want the foot traffic.
Yeah, true.
And they want people to drink and then get drunk and
so
go
they
gamble.
give the comp rooms and
they take care of it. You know,
food
like I did probably 50 major shows in Macau, and it was at a casino. So we got the rooms covered there. And it was easier to get stuff done because the owner of the venue owned the casino as well. So it was easier to maneuver. But now you're having to fly people around the world. And people don't look at travel time as part of the equation. If you go to do an appearance and you're going to, let's say, Denver, we can fly in, do it, and fly home.
Yeah.
You and I go. If I'm doing a show
if we go to FIBO,
Dubai,
yeah.
Now everyone that's traveling with an artist, they don't always live in the same city. You might have your sound engineer might be in LA. You might have your main security here, but you might have 2 really good security people that live in New York that meet in that city. Mm-hmm. So you might have to book 10 different routes.
Who books all that?
Depending on sometimes the tour sometimes the artist management would do it, where they would say, this is what the budget is, wire us the money, we'll take care of it. Sometimes they'll just send you over, these are the airports people are, here's their passport, work it out. And then you have to figure it out. And then it can be a pain in the ass. I would rather just have the management do it. Just like if you and I go somewhere, I'm not letting anyone book us. I'm doing it myself because I know what we want.
I think landed fees are the kind of the best thing.
Yes.
So
yes,
when we say landed fees, like we give one fee that takes care of it, like the flights,
hotels, everything.
Yeah, transportation.
When you do a landed fee, that means you have to get to the place where you're going to be's airport, and you have to get home from there. Once you land at the airport, they take over. So now if somebody's going to go do a show in Dubai, we know Dubai has money. So you're going to 5X it because of where it's at. Mm-hmm. Same with Macau, but if you're going to a poorer country, you're not going to get that same number. So the prices can fluctuate. But the other thing you have to take into account is if you're an artist and you live in LA and you want them to do a show in Dubai, they're 16 hours in the air, 16 hours back. That's 2 days gone.
Yeah.
And when you get there, it fucks you up for 1 day. And when you come home, you can be messed up for 2 or 3 days. So when someone says, hey, I'm going to make up a number. I'm going to pay you $100,000, but you're only going to be on stage for an hour. You're making $100,000 for an hour. They don't realize there's 4 days there. They don't look at that travel where you could have been home with your family. You could have been working on something else. You could have been, that's your time. Time's our most valuable asset. And you're asking for their time to fly around the world. So sometimes these gigs, when someone will go, you turn this down. Yeah, because I got to pay all my staff for 4 days.
Well, you can look at it the same with these guys prepping for these contests, right?
You can.
It's a journey, and it
is.
It takes time. It takes effort. It takes, sometimes it's, like I said, it's not a one-man show. Just because we go to the gym and we're the ones under the weights doesn't necessarily mean that there's not others involved with that. And everything's kind of a process, right?
That's why, like, we have this conversation here, but whatever anyone does, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, whatever they choose to do is what they choose to do. It might not be what I want.
Everyone
but
has their reasons, man. I skipped 2002 Olympia. People thought it was the biggest mistake ever. As I get deeper into my life now, I think, damn, but at the time I knew what was on my plate, and I couldn't have focused and done it properly, and I probably wouldn't have been my best. So I knew to hold back.
But here's the thing, and again, it's a hypothetical. Let's say you went in there and won.
Yeah.
What would have happened if Ronnie came back the next year?
It for this.
It could have, but here, think of it like this way. What would have happened if you would have came in there and won that one, and Ronnie came back pissed off the next year and looked as crazy as ever, and then you lose? Now you just lost. Now you go in the next year. What happens if Kevin Levrone would have moved ahead of you or someone else? You built a legend because you were battling the legend.
Yeah.
So the way it happened was the way it was meant to be.
And that's, I take that, and I'm blessed. I mean, but I always wonder if you missed it at all with that, with the travel, because you like to travel. That's one thing I can say about you is like, you don't mind these, like you're always like, hey, we're going to go here. Maybe we go here for a couple of days and pick up this appearance or do this military or charity event. And I'm always like, bro, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, makes sense. And a lot of times I'm like, I just want to go home. And you're like, man, we're already going to be over here. Why don't we just skip over? The so-and-so has been asking. And, you know how I am. If I have a week back-to-back weekends, I'm always like, man, or a weekend in between, like a gig, like a month, like our April's crazy, right?
I think I love anyone who really knows me. I don't give a shit about material stuff.
You like the experience.
Yes, I do. And I want to go to 100 countries before I'm done. And I'm in the
How many you been?
Low 60s.
You want to go see the wolves?
Yeah, I want to go to northern Canada to go see
wolves. What is it?
There's a resort in northern Canada where they have a ton of wolves that are around, and they come right up to you have like your bedroom and there's windows, and they come right up to the glass. But no, I love different cultures. I've never, and I know people might take this the wrong way, I just have always looked at myself as a world citizen. I want to see everywhere.
You're not tied to the United States. Like you're not.
I've lived overseas. I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years.
Some people don't like the States.
I don't. Look, America has great things. It has things I don't like, but I like seeing the world. There is no country on the planet I wouldn't go see. Like I want to go down to Patagonia in southern Argentina, and I want to fly to Antarctica because I've only known one person that's ever done it. That's why when I had the opportunity to go to Mongolia, what's that?
Ooh.
It's just
random people.
When I had the opportunity to go to Mongolia, which I never knew anybody who had been to Mongolia. Mongolia has the crazy history with Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
And I knew the whole story of him. He's one of the greatest warriors, and he had the largest empire in world history. So
he had the most kids ever.
Over 3,000. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, he had over 3,000 kids. I learned this when I went there. So what I learned, I'm a history nerd. I love geography and history. And when I got there, I started learning about his history. So he grew up in Mongolians were not treated properly, and he wanted to make Mongolians respected. So as he moved up through the ranks, he took over, and he started traveling from village to village. I mean, we're talking all the way across Russia, down through Europe, all the way through the Middle East, and back over through China. But what they would do is he taught all the soldiers how to ride a horse and control it with their legs, and they had bow and arrows. So when they would go into a city, they had swords, they could run by and shoot, and they couldn't defend it. So what he would do is he would go kill all the soldiers, and then he would round up all the women, and this is where the catwalk started, like the models that we see. He would have them walk all the women out, and he would pick the most gorgeous women, and then the next couple days he would do his thing with them, and they go on to the next city, and did this for 30 years. So every place for 30 years, he had kids. And to this day,
Can you imagine that in today's society, bro?
You could, and I remember watching this study where I forgot the number. It's like 30 million people alive today have Genghis Khan's DNA, because he did this all the way across Europe. So you got to think this is 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So imagine how many people, or not 1,000 years, I forgot, 1,200s or something like that, or 1,500s. But imagine how many times all those people that were kids, they had kids and they had kids. They might have been in Poland. They might have been in Saudi Arabia. They might have been in China. So throughout the years, you or I could have Genghis Khan's DNA without us knowing, because someone 8 generations ago was a descendant of his from England or from wherever. So I like going and seeing different places around the world, and I don't give a shit about people's cars and all their expensive stuff. I could care less. I want to take my money and go experience the world.
Pretty cool, I mean, you've got to see a lot because of the professions
of course.
You're in.
I mean, in the music industry, I mean, I traveled. I have this app that shows since 2014 how much I've traveled.
Tell us what that app is, because
it's called App in the Air, and it can go through like your frequent flyer, like programs and your emails, and it can register when it comes from an airline, and it can scan the email, with the dates and the flight time and your name in the email, and it can cross-reference it with the airline, and then it registers and it shows it. And since like 2014, I think it's like I've flown like 1.2 million miles, and I've taken like 1,200 flights or something like that. But before then is when I really, really traveled a lot, from like maybe like 04, 05 to 2014. I probably did 1.5 times that. There was a period for 2 years where I flew from Florida to Vegas every week.
Were you gambling or?
No, it was, we had a residency at a nightclub here with an artist that I worked with.
Okay.
So every week we were out here. So, I mean, I remember one week in spring break, I think it was 05 or 06. I went to Cancun 3 times in 7 days. We had like Akon one night. We had Young Jock, because I toured with him a lot. Akon, Young Jock, and Fat Joe. And it was like, I don't remember the exact dates, but we went from like Miami on a Monday to Cancun. Then we flew to Park City in Utah, back to Cancun. Then we went to Panama City, then back to Cancun, and then to Miami. And this was day in and day out. I remember like 2 of the nights we landed at like 8:30 at night, went to the venue, did the show at midnight, and at 4:30 in the morning, we're on our way back to the airport. We never even saw the sun.
Did you lift weights at this point, or were you
in the beginning?
Off?
Yes,
but it just impossible.
It was
right?
too hard.
The diet sucked.
Yes.
And did you drink?
No. I was always the responsible one.
Yeah.
In the beginning, yes, because I was traveling 2 or 3 days a week, and I still trained because I did security stuff too at the same time. But as I got busier and busier, it affected my health. And that was part of the reason I left, because I would be awake for sometimes 2 or 3 days straight. And you have to be the responsible one, where the only sleep I was getting, and you know I have sleep apnea, was when I would sit on a plane. As soon as I would sit in the seat, I'd fall asleep. And you wake up the next city and boom, you have to go. But even though you're setting all these things up, you have to be the responsible one to be there early. So even if we flew into a city, everyone would get to the hotel, I'd have to go to the venue and check everything and make sure they have everything correct that they're supposed to. And a lot of times they wouldn't. And now I have to help fix whatever issue we had. And then when the show's over, everyone's partying and drunk, and you're like, yo, we got a 6 a.m. flight. It's 3:30 in the morning, and you can't find this person because he's drunk somewhere. And it was very stressful. It's a lot easier when it's just you and I.
And the bodybuilders can be pretty.
Of course they can too. But you know what though? Sometimes I miss it because I got to see some cool shit.
But as you get older, I mean, you just want more peace, right? We talk about that a lot. And
but I can always remember that. Like when we went to Boston and Akon was there, I hadn't seen him in like
it's pretty
7
awesome
years.
Show, actually.
Yes. I hadn't seen
How
him.
many people did he carry with him? I forget.
That show, not a lot, because that was a track show.
Yeah.
That was a track show. When I went on the road with him a lot, it was a full band show, which is 15 plus. A track show, him, 2 or maybe 5 people. But it was just seeing him, like when I walked up to him and his eyes got big, and I was like, holy shit. Like I haven't seen him in like 8
super
years.
Nice guy, dude. He came to like the athlete check-in and all that.
Yeah.
Like,
he came there and then I sat and he's like, man, what happened to you? I'm like, I just disappeared. But it was funny though. The next day I got emails from him. Like, hey, here's my new song. And I'm thinking, what are you trying to
rope you
back in? But no, it was an experience, and I can always
do you
look back.
get like that, like, man, those memories come back when you run into certain people, and
and yesterday was Little John's birthday, and I thought, I'm like, fuck, I gotta text him, and I'm assuming he's gonna be in Vegas, so I'm like, fuck, I haven't seen him in years, so I might message and say, where are you gonna be at?
Yeah,
all right, I'll stay up late because I haven't seen you in, I don't know. I actually, it's kind of funny. We talked about this with Phil. I had Little John do Phil's intro for the 2014 Olympia.
It's pretty cool.
But every once in a while when I get around it, I'm like, I could still do this.
Yeah, so
it's a lot more money.
Yeah, but that was the first time, dude, that I took a day and a half and I just relaxed, and it was well worth it. I drove back late last night, which was the plan anyway. By the way, we were going to drive back like super early on Wednesday morning. But played catch up today, and we just wanted to come on and do this kind of cover this, but we'll be covering, like we said, a lot of these contests, and we still have some people that we have coming in. So we appreciate all the comments, and you guys that came out to LA Fit Expo and gave your feedback. Like, it's just great to hear that. And I don't think a lot of people realize like where you kind of came from a little bit in our kind of history that deep. I know we talked about it a few times, but we're already 60 episodes in, dude, which is crazy. And
one other thing I want to say too, like, people will listen to this, and we have our opinions, and no matter what anyone does or doesn't do, I don't look at anyone in a negative way. I don't this is just my opinion. And I hope nobody listens to it. Like, I hope they make their decision on the way that's best for them. So I don't want anyone to think like, oh, Jay thinks that was a bad idea that he didn't do it. That's their life. If they don't want to do it, don't do it. That's okay. Or if they want to do it, do it. But I don't want anyone to ever think like we're ragging on somebody.
I was getting excited because I said, man, like, that's just like the money's exciting. I love to see that increase. Of course. I mean, I love seeing the trucks, right? I mean, I get excited when they I still would be super excited even if it was 200 and they gave away some sort of vehicle like an electric or something like that, or the Ford Raptor. Or
and I know like money isn't the reason, but sometimes it is. Like even back when you were competing,
nothing's guaranteed. That's the thing.
Nothing.
Man.
And I'm going to say this again. Bodybuilding's not a career. It's a moment in time. It's an opportunity. One torn muscle and it can be over. But I mean, I suppose you could be a doctor and you could get in a car accident and your career's over too. But it's a moment in time where you are running the red line. You are pushing your body farther than it should.
Over the top. Yeah.
Yes. And it's not, and I know I've asked you this before where some of the guys will say, I need a break and this, and I'm not healthy. And I said this before, like, if you're that unhealthy from doing one bodybuilding show, your genetics might not be made.
I know, but you also need to take care of yourself and get your checkups and everything like that, and pay attention to your blood pressure. And
but like, did you ever have any serious health?
I never
scares?
did, and I was huge. I mean, and I did everything that everyone thinks that we do. You know what I mean? So,
of course.
For me, it was, obviously I had someone in my corner. My ex-wife was a nurse practitioner, and, I was a little more health conscious, I feel, in that sense. But listen, man, genetically, I had an easier time, like, putting on weight, getting leaner. I didn't have to, like, kill myself because I stayed on a good diet all year round. So it really wasn't much transition. I mean, you kind of laugh and joke to everyone about my still basic diets.
You damn near eat the same. It's just smaller quantities.
But it's just like, I try to eat like cleaner. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll splurge and have some French fries and stuff like that. But remember, I mean, it's just like, it's a lifestyle. We talk about it all the time. And I knew when I wanted to quit, I wanted to retire healthy. And like I said, we talk about my position today and how I can still do all the things that I did 20 years ago. And I'm not in any pain, and, I'm appreciative, but I appreciate the fans so much, and I'm glad we got to touch on that a little bit, and we'll be back next week for episode 61. We appreciate you guys, so make sure you guys comment below, and enjoy episode 60 of the Cutler Cast.
We're out.
See you next time.